Today we have Mr. Gaurav Kumar as a speaker. He has graduated from NIT Durgapur in the year 2019. He has also received a Prime Minister Research Fellowship in the year 2019. Currently, he is a PhD scholar at IIT Bombay. He has also interned with University of Trauma as his undergraduate summer internship. He is currently working on a joint collaboration project between IIT Bombay and University of Oulu, Finland, on the topic of fatigue and fracture mechanics, studies of third generation advanced high strength steels. He has also been invited as a guest lecturer at NIT. So, before we begin, I would like to ask you about your experience with NIT Durgapur. We have experienced the online college, but you are one of the batches that have experienced the college as offline also. So, would you like to share your experience at NIT Durgapur and
Yes,
offline?
sure. My experience at NIT Durgapur has been, I still remember in August 2015 I had joined, and it was a rainy day, and when I had joined in the Department of Metallurgical and Materials Engineering. Currently I am in Mechanical Department at IIT Bombay. So I am a resident of Durgapur itself, so I was more or less like a day scholar, and the initial days were like uh, going out from the home towards that running in the ground, and then engineering drawing, which if you like or don't like, everyone has to do in the first year, both the semesters. And then there was no subject as such on core metallurgy, but electrical, electronics, mechanicals were there. So initially it was like togetherness amongst the students of all the branches, and my CGPA in the initial semesters were not that great. Actually, at the end of the first year, my CGPA was around 8.1 or 8.2. Decent, but not great. So when I entered into my third semester of metallurgy, my first job and aim was that I will devote myself to this department. I generally don't prefer or like to compare any department with each other, but unfortunately people do that, and they consider in general that some core departments need not be taken, but some core departments are better than some other departments. So you can understand in what I wish to say. But I made it my mind that I will do good and I will try to excel in my own department, so that this would anything, if you any job, any particular thing, if you do better, it would be good. And I started to read metallurgy, and gradually my interest in it also gained, and my academically I started to get good SGPAs 9.14, 9.64 and so on. And eventually then I thought my direction towards research started very well from my third semester itself. So there was a professor in our metallurgy department who got retired when I was myself in the NIT. So I worked with him in one of the development of a software in the sense a database software of blast furnace calculations, mass balance, heat balance, and all that. And he sent it to Italy, to Germany, to Belgium, and to some other European countries. And I got offers either formally or through some mails or like that, through around 6 to 7 universities in Europe. One of which was this University of Parma uh, uh, in northern Italy. So, and there were other like KU Leuven Belgium had offered me, and TU Berg Academy Freiburg had also given an offer to join as an intern. So that was how I got a foreign intern. So in this story, it was like I worked on a topic of my own interest with one person who liked my interest in that topic, and then he tried to send those works to the people who would appreciate it. That was the crux of that time of my life in 2018 or so. And then in 2018 I went to Europe, in Italy, to do my internship, which lasted for 3 months from May to July. And upon return, several questions came, and this would come to any person who would enter into their final year. or in the end part of the third year. What was those questions? What after this? Should I go for a job? Should I go for higher studies abroad? Should I go for higher studies by remaining in India? Same questions started to haunt me day and night here also. So that was a big question to me, and I can personally say that every one of us are going to face it. So I sat in placements there. Now the problem was that in general it is said, and I have also experienced, that people who come from foreign universities doing internship placement, people think that ये तो research में ही चला जाएगा, इसको क्यों job दूँ? But I somehow convinced some job people, and I was the first person in my department to get a core job in MN Dastur. It's a Kolkata-based company which works to develop blast furnaces. I showed them the same software of blast furnace to do that. So they offered me with a condition that you please join us and all that. But eventually I was also planning to give GRE, and I had already given in October 2018 my exam of IELTS. So after that I was preparing in the sense getting ready for GRE examination sometime in January. Then suddenly one of my friends suggested, and I found out about the Prime Minister Fellowship, which I saw that is my personal opinion, which may be debatable even today, is that if you are getting opportunities in India, there is no point in going abroad. Going abroad and serving some other countries, even by staying there for some time, can be an option. But if your own country gives you all kinds of incentives, both financially and technically, then the best place to do research is your own nation. And there couldn't have been anything better than PMRF, which would allow you to do research in terms of national importance. Today I work with my supervisor, who is a former director of DRDO, Professor Gokhale. He has been also involved in big tests of India like Pokhran, Shakti, LCA aircrafts, generation, both AMCA and Tejas. So when you work with these people, you get a sense of pride that you are also working on them. I'm also, as you said, that I'm working on fracture mechanics of advanced steels. These are going to be replacements to the landing gear of various fighter jets. So when you see your research getting reflected in this building, no matter how big or small of the nation, that's good. So that inspired and drove me to apply for PMRF. And I had applied for metallurgy department, of course, and mechanical. I had no intention or no thinking also that eventually I will be selected by the mechanical panel, but that happened, and that was, I think, the unique one. So that was the point, that was the turning moment of my life, where I completely turned towards research in my country. And it was such that it was one of the kind of changing the department from metallurgy to mechanical, direct PhD. And IIT Bombay had to take a hard time in deferring my admission, because I had got this fellowship way in my 7th semester. So I had to complete one more semester only, then I could join IIT. So I had to tell IIT almost in a strong mails that you defer my admission because I cannot join now. So I was to join in January 2019, but I joined in July because my one semester of BTech was left out. So this sums up my entire journey of BTech, where I did many things, but one thing was important, that my commitment towards the department from which I belong, which is metallurgy, was intact and firm, and it eventually gave me everything what one can think of that I can say today. So this was the journey part.
Yes. So the next question would be like, how did your early career choices and interests led you to where you are now? I guess we have somewhat covered it in the first question itself, but like more specific. And what are the various hardships and achievements that you have faced, and what all things you did to overcome them? How all that has shaped you to the person you are today, and how that has helped you to reach the position at where you are today. So just
if I talk about the hardships, which I would like to talk more than of success, is that, as I told when I joined initially, if I go on more elaboration, just like any dreaming student from class 12 to going into engineering, quota factory is also coming, the part 2 is to join an IIT. So was that of mine. But sometimes some exams which are small, time based, 2 hours, 3 hours or 6 hours for a 2 paper. Even if you have studied, it's like a one day match, you may not perform well, which happened to me. But I wanted to give a second shot to it. And one of my biggest failures in my second semester at NIT was that in the first year I was parallelly also preparing for JEE Advanced. I have not said at many forums, but I was doing that. That led to not at all a good performance in that exam also. And my SGPA of second semester was 6.8. Means you can check that. It was 6.8. One of the lowest one may think about. I just managed to pass. And it was one of the biggest nightmares for a person who is entering into the departmental curriculum with such kind of SGPA. Everyone will say that you are good for nothing. That was initially thought of some people also when I entered into the department. But that became my driving force. I said that I will turn this 6.8 first of all. And my third semester SGPA was 9.27. So what made that difference was I wanted to study. That failure in the second semester became my driving force to study more in my third semester. I cannot tell in words how much I had to study for that, but that was the biggest hardships. But after you do that, the question arises, you have to get interest. Your CGPA is not going to reflect your interest or knowledge about the subject. I want to make it very clear. What is going to reflect is that how much passionate you are about it. And that passion started to generate with the subjects. Of course, there are many subjects in metallurgy I strongly dislike, but there are some which I love. One of which was steels and its understanding, because I come from Durgapur. My family is from earns its bread and butter from steel plant, and I eat in the plate of steels. I was born in the hospital which is called Durgapur Steel Plant, so I've been into steels, and that gave me the push and interest to get into it. That was my second point of interest, which fired my engine to move forward. And I studied deeply. I remember the days that some students went on, pre-COVID days of course, went on to some IITs, preferably Kharagpur and all. But in my second semester's summer holiday, second to third semester, I didn't go anywhere. I sat in my home, started to make my own notes, not for passing some exam or getting some CGPA, but out of my own interest. On those days, I started to do some courses on edX, Coursera, just out of my own interest. That I want to know this. I don't know where this thing will take me, but I want to know this. And if you ask how these things come and how these things go towards the final achievement of the goal, it was like all those notes are still with me today. Sometimes my professor reads those notes. And that I just took it with myself, went on developing it in every semester. And one of those things contained a derivation of something called diffusion. If anyone knows Arrhenius equation, you may have studied in your +2 level, or if you are in at least mechanical or material.
Yes. Arrhenius equation and Fick's law in diffusion.
Yes. I had an analytical derivation I had made in my notebook. Nobody took interest. Everyone was saying, क्या कर रहा है ये इतना mathematics करके क्या करोगे? कौन सा placement वाला तुमको board पे करने बोलेगा ये? That was true. No placement company asked me that. But when I went to the mechanical PMRF panel, there were 8 professors from different departments, different IITs, Kharagpur, Kanpur, ISC Bangalore, Madras. So that was housed in IIT Madras, but professors were there from different departments, 8 professors. They asked me this question, that you are a metallurgist, we are mechanical guys. Let us find a common place. Can you thermodynamically derive Arrhenius equation? And I did. Something which no one took interest in the second semester. I just did it sitting at my home alone, seeing everyone else giving their status updates here and there that they are in this IIT, that very derivation which I did and filled up the board with mathematical equations in no time, won me in the PMRF instantly, not in my department but in a different department, in mechanical. The moral of this story is, whatever you do today may not be reflected as a success today, but one day that very thing will become the reason why you are standing there. So these are the hardships, right? So it is like people see what you did, but in the backdrop there were several things. Means you cannot imagine what one feels when one gets a SGPA like 6.8. I barely passed in few subjects. I just managed not to get a supplementary in that, not to get a fail grade. I barely passed because I remember when there was a math examination, same day was JEE Main or JEE Advanced. I gave JEE Mains or JEE Advanced parallelly, same day or next day I gave the mathematics examination without any preparation. So that was the level of pressure I took it on myself because it was my interest. At the end, I won or not at that time, that's a different thing. But I got my satisfaction. And maybe I couldn't do something at that time, but today that instilled me to remain inspired and motivated in the positive way. And today I am talking to you. That is my story again in all my ups and downs of my BTech life.
Okay, moving forward, what should one keep in mind while opting for a research career?
Yes, that's a good question. So when you are opting for a research career, one thing is very important. Don't run behind the craze. That I will always tell you. What is the craze? Don't just see where one is going at that place. I will also go at that place. If someone is migrating to US, I will also go there. If someone is migrating to Europe, I will also go there. When you are into research, you have to find your own passion. It is your research, your thesis, your degrees. So you have to find your own passion. That is what I did. I found out my own passion in my BTech itself. That I want to work on steels. Today I am working on steels only. And you have to find that which are the places here or abroad or wherever where people really work on it. Try to interact with them. Not with an aim of going and working with them in future. Just interact with them in a very serene manner, in a very pious manner. Just I want to exchange knowledge with you. Find out professors in your department who are working in that area. Attach yourself with them. Today, you can online talk to anyone. I am sitting at my home now. I am not in Bombay. I am in Durgapur itself. So I can talk to all of you. You can talk to anyone online. So that is the power of online connection nowadays. Try to do that. Once you will be attached with a professor who has the same passion as of you, he will instill you and inspire you to go further and further. And your urge to do more research will increase. And later on, when you are entering into the research field for a master's or a PhD, then you will find is that the topic what you have worked is going to simply help you out there. Of course, research is no normal area. If you are, I can tell you how was my 2 years at IIT Bombay in mechanical. I can tell you my story of that also, and that is no less than of a dramatic one. But what should give you solace at the end is that your passion to take up the topic, setting aside from the hustle and bustle of other people and standing on your own topic and trying to contribute to it, no matter how big or small it is called research. And that passion is required. And opportunities are there. You can apply for PMRF in India. You can go for direct PhDs at Delhi, Bombay, Madras offers that. Even Kanpur offers that. If you have found some good labs abroad, you can just go there and work with them. But you have to first find out what is your area of work to go for.
Okay. Can you tell us what is it like to be a Prime Minister Research Fellow Scholar? And if you could guide us, tell us what are the initial steps we must take to reach that point? Is there anything like that?
First part of your question, what are the initial steps? Let me answer. I think there should not be any specific initial steps for being a PMRF. As I said, it is one of the various options which you have to enter into accredited research. Being a PMRF is a very coveted thing, of course. It gives you the amount of the prestige and all. You are working on topics which are of national importance. But to reach here, I think that the panel where I sat didn't see my CV. I had a fat CV with my all internships and all that, everything was there. But they simply kept it on the table aside. They just asked me the basic question which I have told you, to derive something. So the steps involved in getting into PMRF or something like that is simple. Your basics should be crystal clear. Get one topic. They ask for uploading some research statements or SOP kind of thing, where you have to tell that you want to work or you have an interest or you have worked on this topic. I wrote about this diffusion thing only. So they grilled me in that area, and I got grilled, and I answered every damn questions which they asked, because I was confident about that area of my knowledge. So the finding step is simple. You have to create a base where you can stand, and you have to make a mark there. That is it. However, you should gain knowledge, discuss with your seniors how to get into it, but the steps behind it should be this only. Means you should not make a specific plan for PMRF. You should make a plan to excel your knowledge base one after another. Seek all the options. PMRF, other direct PhD options are there. INAE fellowships are there. Inspire fellowships are there in India. Abroad is a separate issue. You can think about that as well. But everything requires you to know the basics. And being a PMRF here, the second part which you have asked, is that of course people have higher expectations from you. So when I joined at IIT Bombay, as I have told you that I joined in mechanical department. In mechanical department, there is something called qualifier examinations. Every PhD has it, but it is said that at IIT Bombay, mechanical is the toughest one. Even many people with an MTech degree in mechanical fail to qualify that. And one has to qualify that exam to continue the PhD. So in general, a BTech to PhD student is given around 1.5 years to clear those. There are 3 papers you have to give, purely mechanical. So I have no knowledge of the subjects of it. And they can clear in 1.5 years. So to me also it was said that you do it in 1.5 years. Don't do it early. But I literally fought with the department and told them I want to give it in 6 months because I want to get it done. So again, it was just like my first semester kind of grilling. I had to study day and night some subjects which were completely unknown to me initially, and I cleared all the 3 papers in single shot in 6 months. So that was a record that a person from a different department cleared all these 3 papers in 6 months itself. But again, that point also had a lot of hardships to me in when I joined PhD here. But my motivation came from my BTech days, that I had done things there and I am doing it now. But of course here expectations are high, reviews are there, you have to show your work, you should be very clear about your goals, problem statement, observations and so on, which is very important. So all in all, it is your basic understanding which is going to take you forward.
How being a PMRF has changed your life, and what are your goals after completing this fellowship and your PhD?
Okay. Goals after PhD largely depends on the work and the what you are doing. And it in general, which I don't believe that life after PhD is either enter academia or industry. No. You can enter academia being a professor anywhere at an IIT or an NIT, or you can become a scientist at a R&D laboratory. My goal is to not just become a scientist or an academician. It is to do something, because they require us to do something which is of national priority. Some of my friends are working on jet nozzles which will require you to work on, which should withstand high temperatures, which will be used in the jet engines of fighter aircrafts developed by India. Some of my friends are working on arteries and vessels, how heart attack can be cured without a surgery. These are of priority areas. So after that, one can enter into a hospital giving them some help with their innovations. One can enter into an academia, becoming a professor, working on these cutting edge topics and competing on the global standards. My aim is to become like my supervisor. I want to join some R&D industries after PhD, like ISRO, DRDO, CSIR labs, and to become a scientist there, and to do some cutting edge research, which will be more or less a continuation of my PhD thing. Because I want my work just not to find themselves in some journals. I want my work to be visible to the society. So that is the vision as a PMRF which I keep.
Okay, that's interesting. And like as someone who has gone to foreign countries and now you're working in collaboration with a reputed foreign university along with one of the most popular institute of India, how do you think the Indian education system differs that from the other nations? And like, do you have something that you want to inculcate among Indian students that you feel that we are lacking?
What I feel is that, of course, at IIT Bombay, everything is of a standard which is competing with the world. My collaborator university at Finland, Oulu, is a pioneer in steel research. That's why we are collaborating. So their way of work is more of a very focused work. They do things in a manner which is extremely focused and goal-oriented. In fact, today itself, since morning, I was boggling my head on one manuscript submission. So with them only, and they were actually grilling me on the nitty-gritties of the writing of the paper and all that. Just before your event, I could finalize everything and I have sent them the final version. So what I feel while working with them is that they are very focused in their one work. They don't digress. They don't believe in the breadth of the work, but the depth of it. And that is what I want to inculcate I want that students should inculcate in every universities in India. Of course, our infrastructure may also be improved, which is improving slightly and constantly in every university. But this particular fact of being a focused researcher is very important. Why I'm saying is because I've seen at IIT Bombay and many places that people digress. They are working with 10 different things, trying to become a jack of all spades but master of none. And this happens a lot in Indian universities, which is, I believe, is not good. They may say that becoming multitasking will upgrade your personality, you will have many publications, this and that, but at the end of the day, research is not about just management. Research has a component of management also, but research is about the focus. And focus can be attained at one area. If you use a magnifying glass, it can burn a paper only when the beam is focused. A diffused beam on a paper will not make a difference. I think I'm right. So that is something I want to inculcate. I want to see that. I feel while working with the Finland collaborators that their focus and depth of the work, and I try to ingrain it in myself. My supervisor constantly tells me that to be focused, not to increase the breadth but the depth. And that I constantly focus upon. So that is something I want to have in Indian students.
Okay. Now can you tell us a little bit about your internship that you did in University of Parma? I guess that was the first time you had gone outside India.
Yes.
Stayed out of your comfort zone,
Yes.
being not home. So can you tell us about the challenges you have faced and what were your preparations which you did beforehand?
Yeah.
And is there any kind of application process for that specific internship?
With regard to University of Parma, NIT Durgapur has an MOU with them. I want to inform, and various other universities like Brno Technology University in Czech Republic, and some more. I am forgetting. Mingchi University in Taiwan. They had also offered me internship, but they were calling me for 3 or 4 months, so I didn't go there. So I got through an MOU. So formally, I went there as an exchange student. So formally, my credits were transferred from the European system to the Indian system. So that was like that. So when I went, so that you can always check with the international office of NIT. I think Professor Dwivedi is the international dean. He helped me a lot in the paperwork initial days of going there. So that was through an MOU. When I went there, I worked on additive manufacturing of aluminium silicon alloys. It is still a very burning topic to go for, and it was like more or less the initial days were the literature survey, then some experimentation, data generation, and writing the report. But more important, it was that I went outside for the first time of my country, for the first time of my state also, except few initial ones. So, and alone, in fact, I've never gone alone so far any time in the past. So that was a complete cultural shift. You get pizzas only there. So it was like, a very initial days were quite challenging for me to adjust. They had given me, since I went as an exchange student, so I got a hostel accommodation itself. So in the university hostel dormitory itself. But it was a bit lonely for me, cultural gap. And European countries are very specific about their languages. They may not entertain you if you constantly speak in English with them. They will expect you to speak in Italian or in German or in Polish, whatever. So that was a thing. But anyhow, I somehow, as the time passed, I went on, and things became okay to me. And another hardships and challenges what I faced was finding yourself alone. If you go abroad, you are on your own. You have to make your own food. You have to maintain yourself on your own. Go for research. And it's not like those universities are like you have the hostel here and you just walk in and go to your department there. No, you have to take a bus. For the bus, you need to get a daily pass. So you have to go to any office and get your paperwork done. In Italy, there is another rule that if I am a student, I have to get a tax code, which is just like the Aadhaar card of India. That will be for a lifetime. You will be having a lifetime tax code of Italy. But for that, you have to run to the government office. All your passport, this, that, everything has to be done. So all those paperwork will be too much, even before going and during your stay. So I had to, do a lot of paperwork in Italy also. And then every day taking a bus, going to the university, coming back was a constant job for me. And I was doing it. Anyhow, I started to adjust in few weeks and things went good lately. And it was a very good experience. I visited good places. I visited Florence, Rome, Venice. So those things for photo shoot is very good. So I went on that gondola of Venice and all that was there. So in a whole, my experience was that I thought I will not be able to do it because I have never been outside of my comfort zone so far away in a different continent. Forget about a state or a thing. So that was a great experience to me, and that opened my eyes also that how foreign things look. Sometimes what it happens that some people who has a fascination to go abroad, they say that foreign is good, but when you go there you will understand what are the pros and cons of it. And I have listed you then what are the pros and cons. Pros are that you will get a better infrastructure and more cultural interaction will be there. Cons are there, it will be a completely different culture. Means of course there will be an interaction, but at the end you are a foreigner there. Just as when they come to India, they are foreigner here. So that culture can be there. Some amount of loneliness in the initial days you have to face, and you are on your own. Western cultures is not like that only. You have to be very independent, whether it is Europe or United States.
But how has been your experience of being a guest lecturer at NIT Durgapur? Like you have been a student at NIT Durgapur, right? And now you're a guest lecturer in NIT Durgapur. So how is that change? Can you explain that change or that feeling when you come as a guest lecturer?
So my experience as a guest lecturer was that I have to teach somewhere. Every Prime Minister fellow has to teach any place, but the requirements are that you can teach any polytechnic or an ITI or anywhere. You don't require to go to means they say it would be best if you teach a any NIRF rank university will also work. So I thought why not to try with NIT. So but I was a bit I was taking this matter with a pinch of salt, whether I will get it or not, means whether NIT will allow me to do that or not. So that was a big problem. But I mailed the HOD of NIT Durgapur, and I also my supervisor also mailed the HOD. And we made a common plan. The question now was that if I'm going to teach, what should I teach? Means students you are already having classes, na? So if I come with another course, you will think that kahan se aa gaya mujhe aur burden dene wala. So that was a problem. So then I was thinking what to do. and the HOD of metallurgy department was also thinking. So we made a common plan. What was that? Whatever the teacher is teaching, I will give lectures in those areas only. Okay, and I will create my own slides and I will give them the lectures from that area, so that it will be a kind of give and take thing. The teacher will also get some time and off, and he can prepare for quizzes and all, and I will keep on giving my lecture to the BTech students. So my experience till now, and I will continue to do this till my tenure as a PhD student, is that it is great. Means teaching your own students of your own juniors in your own alma mater as a guest lecturer, what can be better than that? And if one talks about the standards if one has to maintain, when someone says that you have to max teach an ITI and Polytechnic, you are teaching an NIT, that gives us a different sense of pride and achievement. So every Tuesday and Thursday I take a class. That's why I told that either on Wednesday or Thursday we should meet. So it is all kind of every I take a class in the entire week. I have to complete 1 hour of teaching. Every I manage. Sometimes the teacher takes, sometimes I take. So and I complete the requirements of 1 hour of teaching. And students are great, and I have told them if a student performs well in the class, I will try to give them, which I can give also, an internship at IIT Bombay, which is not a big deal. We can get that student working on some project at here for a few months, or online on a topic for a few months. That would be great. So that is my experience till now.
Okay. So when we perform experiments in our labs, that is the college labs, we mostly find our results to be a bit off from the expected results due to various conditions. Often what we students tend to do is we adjust the data by a small amount so that no one notices and we get that accurate result, so that we don't have to redo the experiments again. And the results match our outcome. But when such an important research work is being carried at the ones which you work at your level, like when there is some inaccuracy or some result which is not expected, and if it arises, what do you do?
That's a problem and a point of frustration for every PhD student, I can tell you, more or less. When you do an experiment, take it for granted that it is going to fail initially, either due to the setup or due to the less amount of knowledge about the experimentation or anything. So I work on fracture mechanics, one of those experiments which will take the least amount of time. But it is more like a launch of a rocket. If there is a single mistake in my calculation, that experiment will fail completely. And initially when I you have to design that sample, you have to get your dimensions, how the crack would propagate with the load, this and that. I made a small mistake in which the ratio had to be 0.55. I designed it in a manner which had to be 0.5, and my data was failed. I was entirely frustrated and I had to repeat them. But that learning in that process, it took me around 3-4 more weeks. My delay happened to generate reports and other things. But that learning gave me a kind of knowledge, a kind of experience, which after this I'm never going to do that mistake. But that experience, that how things should not be done, is more important to know how things should be done. You may be knowing that story of Thomas Edison. After failing around 1,000 times to make a bulb, someone asked him that why you are trying, and he said, at least I have found 1,000 ways in which you cannot make a bulb. So if you are having a data, my supervisor also tells me every time, don't hide it, no matter how correct or wrong it is. Show that data, because data speaks for itself. Whatever results you are getting, it may be off, but show that it is off. Why it is off, that has to be found out. And if once that thing is found out, you can just get that done and then proceed, and next time you will never fail in that experiment. And you will generate a kind of confidence also. So never try to find the shortcut in research. That is another point I want to add. Shortcut cannot be the way to excel in research area, especially when you are doing a PhD. you may be tempted that I can do things in this manner, my results would come fast, I can just communicate fast in a manuscript. But is it going to add to the value in the long run? That question, that big question you have to ask to yourself. And eventually everyone faces it. Even I have faced that. I also wanted to jaldi isko chhap dete hain. But eventually I realized that there is no point in it. You have to get the knowledge. PhD is about adding to your knowledge, and then you can contribute to the existing gap, no matter how much. So that whatever you are off topic or something, that's fine. Just present that data to the person whom you are discussing with, your supervisor or faculty advisor or whosoever, and then try to find how to get it right. If that requires some analysis, do it. If that requires a repeat experiment and there is no other option, then also do it. But solve that problem. Don't run from it to find a common shortcut way.
Okay. How has being an IEEE member helped you in your career or in your research work?
So being a member of professional bodies is a very important thing. So I am a member of some professional societies like the Indian Institute of Metals. I am an associate member of that. I'm an executive member of the German Material Society for Fatigue and Fracture Mechanics. It is maintained by RWTH Aachen University. And I'm also a member of the European Structural Integrity Society. That they also deal with fracture mechanics only, more or less. So my experience is that when you are a member of these professional bodies, or IEEE also, which is one of them and very popular, one of the biggest I think, is that the best thing what you get is exposure, because you cannot excel remaining in the pond. You have to get out of it. So the best way is that in these professional bodies there are people from around the world, and there are various online, now everything is online conferences, webinars, seminar, where you can attend, you can speak. Last week Royal Society of England had conducted an event on fracture mechanics and Griffiths theory. They had invited 70 people. I was fortunate enough that I was one of them. So I saw that how people are working in that area. People from Imperial College London, Cambridge and Oxford and Glasgow. These were the 4 universities. From professors from them were the speakers, and 70 attendees were there. So you get to know them. You can interact with them later also. And if their work and your work find some solace, some match of frequency is there, you can go there and work later on as a postdoctoral fellow or any kind of researcher. So that increases your outreach, your exposure to the world.
At a time when most of the core students choose coding to land a job, even in our college, every year there is at least 2 people from metallurgy who land a job in Amazon.
Yeah.
You chose your core subjects and worked in metallurgy itself.
Yes.
What was your motivation? Did you ever had a feeling that you wanted to go to technical side like coding, or you were always very passionate about metallurgy?
Answer to this, first of all, I would like to give is that I never could do coding. Codes and languages are alien to me. I could never, even in class 11, 12, I got very poor marks in computer science. I wondered why I took that. So I never got an interest in that. That was the first thing. Personally speaking, I never got an interest in coding. So that was the first thing which resisted me to take code and work on coding areas. Still today, when some people are doing some simulations and all and writing codes of it, I don't understand much. I work more on analytical aspect. I can do very well pure mathematical derivations and calculation. That is fine. But coding is alien to me to a great extent. So that was one thing. Secondly, as I told you when I was speaking about my journey of BTech, is that I was more or less, when I entered into my 3rd semester, I said that no, I want to make a career in metallurgy only. Enough of the society speaking this and that about a good or a bad branch, but I want to work on it. So initially I faced problems, but when I got into it, I found that this subject is where I can learn a lot. And my passion towards metallurgy grew exponentially in my 2nd year and 3rd year. And that drove me. So it was my resistance towards coding and my passion towards metallurgy, which catapulted me to get into research. or in metallurgy department. Even in mechanical, I'm working on steels only, so I'm more on metallurgical area only. Just for the registration purpose, I'm in mechanical department.
Okay. When you were answering your first question, you told something that when you were in your second year summer break and third year summer break, you used to see that your friends are posting that they're interning at various places like IITs and all. I mean, but you didn't do that. You are focusing on your own work.
Yes.
Can you tell me like how could you do that? Like that must have required some incredible level of discipline to
Yes.
not do something what everyone is doing and not to feel down that you're doing something else.
That requires an incredible level of discipline and more incredible level of self-belief. It is very easy to follow the herd. Means it is still very easy, but when it requires you to be very disciplined and focused and have confidence in yourself, no matter how much other people are what other people are thinking about you. That's what was my primordial driving force. I saw people were going to Kharagpur, someone to Bombay, someone to Madras, someone to Kanpur, here and there. One person to abroad also, and second year itself. So I was like, no, this cannot be the case now. I have to first build myself, because my point was when I will present myself to the world, I should not be someone who is not confident enough of his subject. I wanted there be some delay, but when I will present myself to the world, I should be someone who stands on his ground and has made a mark at his interest point. That brought discipline automatically. And then I was fond of doing online courses a lot. Today we are doing everything online. It is now a common thing, but I found edX at that time, and there was a course on structural materials offered by MIT. I did that out of my interest. I gave the test, I attended all the lectures, everything what is required. Then I went to Coursera. There was a course by UC Davis, 10 things a material science engineer should know. I diligently did that. So those were the things, like I got interest in a direction, and that made me more focused to do that, even after seeing everyone else going here and there. And that paid off later, I can say.
Okay, like you didn't have the fear, like there's something called FOMO, fear of missing out, that your friends are working in IIT, like doing some intern while you're studying yourself. You never had the fear that you might be missing out something?
Nothing big can be achieved without fear. That is the first thing you should know. I had the fear. I had that fear of missing out. I had every fear. Who can have less fear than me, who was having 6.8 SGPA in hand, going nowhere when everyone else is going here and there. So I had that fear. But I also had that discipline, self-courage and passion, which overpowered that fear. But that fear kept him, that discipline which you are talking about, that came from my fear. That if I am doing something which is different, I must do it diligently. Only then I will be successful. So that fear was always there. But that fear, I took it in a positive sense, and I did. So yes, it was there. But you have to overcome that. That has to be overcome.
Okay. We have often heard that to land a good package job, especially for core students and for core departments, you have to pursue higher studies. How much of this is true? And if it is true, why is it so?
To an extent it is true, because core jobs lately require, you cannot be only just a person in the production line and seeing how much is the production coming. There are people for that. But if you want to get into the R&D of it or a higher strata of it, both in management and research, for management you have to get an MBA degree. For research you have to at least get an MTech degree to get into an R&D of any good firm. Generally they don't take BTech in R&Ds. I'm talking about core, not of Samsung R&D or like that. Tata Steel R&D or this, that. They generally tend to take MTech people or sometimes PhD people. Because for them, production line thing is different. That's more of it's happening a monotonous thing. But when you are in R&D, your decisions about the quality of the material, composition of the steel or whatever it is going to affect the production. So you should be in a position to decide that. So there is a preference, of course, for higher degrees, like at least masters. With a PhD, you can enter itself into a higher position. Like you can enter as a senior scientist itself, which you cannot enter with an MTech degree. So that is there. Your degree will land you to a higher position because now you have more experience of learning, which you can apply to the work.
Okay, when we usually think about metallurgy and associate it to some famous person, the first person that comes to our mind is Sundar Pichai, who did his bachelor's in metallurgy and even went to Stanford to pursue a post-graduation in metallurgy. And finally, he went and joined Google. In future, do you have some plans on joining some tech giants? Or maybe
no as of now, but nobody knows about tomorrow. But neither Sundar Pichai would have thought about it like that. But he was a brilliant person. He did his MS and then I think he did his MBA from Wharton School of Business from Penn State. So, if I'm not wrong, and so that was like he shifted his thing and went into that. But he was also focused in his own career. Till the moment he was moving into metallurgy, he went till Stanford. Then he had a change of shift of mind. That can happen in a point of life when you are completely settled and all. So as of now, if you ask me, I don't have any such plans as of now. But if life offers you something, then because life is like a river, in which direction it will take you tomorrow, nobody knows. Means I never knew that I will be doing a research in mechanical department. So, but life took me here in a sudden stroke of a result. But similarly, what will happen is not known. But as of now, I don't have any such plans. And in fact, I can also tell you there are many other famous people also in metallurgy. One of the very famous person is, Professor Sir Harry Bhadesia, the father of steel technology. He's a Tata Steel professor in University of Cambridge. And his works are cited heavily, 48 or 50,000 citations of his work. He's a metallurgist. Then 3 Bhatnagar awardees from, it's not that, I'm not talking at the level of a Google CEO, but one to be cherished upon. There is something called Santi Swarup Bhatnagar Award, awarded by CSIR every year by the Prime Minister of India. From NIT Durgapur, there are 3 Bhatnagar awardees. All 3 are from metallurgy. Professor Kamanio Chattopadhyay, Emeritus Professor in IISc Bangalore, Professor Biswajit Basu, same in IISc Bangalore Professor, and Professor Alok Paul. He is also in IISc Bangalore only. All 3 are Bhatnagar awardees. So these are great people. Then there are many others whom I can name, but it is like they are into different fields and different areas. One another alumni here from NIT Durgapur is Tarasankar Devroy, one of the founding fathers of additive manufacturing technology. He is a professor in Penn State University, closely works with Bhadesia, but he is one of the founder of additive manufacturing technology. Can you think that? So it depends, like whether if you want to go into keep your life in that area also, or to enter into tech giants, that is also done. People do their MBA after PhD also. That is also a path to become an entrepreneur or enter into some tech areas. But that's a different field, which I don't have a plan to take up now.
From mechanical engineering actually. So you talked I heard that you prefer to do research in fracture mechanics. How do you and you prefer analytical way, how solving differential equations of higher order, do you feel any stress, and how do you overcome those things?
Yeah, so fracture mechanics in itself has 2 parts in broad sense. One is analytical and one is experimental. In mechanical department, people generally work on the analytical aspect of it, doing FES, analytical and numerical, which is more of a FES simulations at the crack tip, understanding of the stress fields around it, plane strain or plane stress conditions, and so on. Experimental aspects are determining the fracture toughness of those materials via K1C, J1C analysis according to the relevant standards. My job being from metallurgy now in mechanical is to amalgamate these two. I do pure math. I don't do simulations because, as I told you, I don't like coding much. So I do analytical analysis, pure mathematical analysis. You must have heard about Irwin theory, Westergaard theory. These are some theories in mathematics of fracture mechanics. If you have not, you will learn it if you go deeper into it. It is a complex number analysis. It requires some complex numbers and all that to come up. So I do that a lot, and I do experiments, and I try to amalgamate them. So my work mostly focus on the analytical understanding. Something is explained through formulas and validated through experiments. So that gives me a real lot of joy, because not many people do that. I can tell you in fracture mechanics, there are very few people in India who are working completely on this. Either they work on pure mathematics or pure experimentation, but they don't generally work on an amalgamation of these two. So that is something where I think I have an edge.
Like previously, thank you. And previously, you have told that you have a deep interest in steel, and like I am also from Durgapur and like brought up in Durgapur Steel City. But in recent times, it is being seen that like many more materials of like different properties, low cost than steel are coming up. Like, how do you see the future of steel, like in the nearby?
See, the future of steel is not going to wane for this century, at least. I can tell you. There may be various comments by people who are working on carbon nanotube, this, that, and ultra mega modern materials here and there, but they have not been able to come out of their labs. They are just in their labs only. Whatever great properties they are showing, first they have to get out of their labs. Then they have to be cost effective. Then they have to get the suitable buyers. Then they have to get into industrial production. These things cannot happen in a day or an year or even in a decade. And for that reason, any competitor of steel, because steel is a structural material, not in much in aerospace, it's more of a structural material. So to replace steel from the buildings and to give some other material, it will take a very long time. It is not very easy for other material, because a country's power in economy is also adjusted by the amount of steel you produce. India is in number 2. Number 1 is China. Number 2 is India. And then is United States. Can we think that in any near time you will be having carbon nanotube, or not carbon nanotube, any silicon based material or any such kind of advanced functional material? I think no. So the future of steel, at least for this century, is intact as a leader for structural materials. Various generations of steels are coming. In steels also, I work on 3rd generation advanced high strength steels. Till now there are 2 generations which are into working. Dual phase, strip, tweep, these are 1st generation. Complex phase, Benetic, interstitial free steels, IF steels, hot roll Benetic steels, these are 2nd generation steels. Then comes something called quenched and partition steels. These are 3rd generation steels, over which I am at the moment working upon. So future of steel is bright. For at least in our lifetime, we are not going to see steel being replaced completely by anything else. Maybe our great grandsons can see, but not us, or great granddaughters.
Little off the topic, like recently, like you have told that in NITs, like I have also seen that some like prefer that this department is great or that shouldn't be done. But recently, Elon Musk has tweeted metallurgy is the greatest. Like, what is your thought on that?
That's good. That means that people are acknowledging us. Elon Musk also in Hyperloop, Virgin Hyperloop, what he has made, the choice of the material was the most critical thing for that capsule of Hyperloop to come. Every material cannot go like that. The material in the below should be magnetic in nature, which will run it in that speed, in that vacuum. So which material will withstand vacuum, which material will withstand the drag, means a kind of magnetic drag also comes up. You are having vacuum, but there is a kind of magnetic drag. So it's a great choice of material has to be done. Shock absorbent material where the passengers are sitting. So you have to choose a material which should be shock absorbent. In case of an accident, to reduce the chance of fatality, you have to choose that kind of material where people are sitting. Yes or no? So these things are very important. You cannot in automobile or space, even SpaceX, Tesla, material choice is a primordial. So metallurgy and material science is not going anywhere. People in BTech, when they come from different coaching institutes here and there, their mind is filled with different kinds of off topics. So they tend to give some departments a kind of ranking on their own or whatever they have been fed in their minds. But when you will come out and when you will see the world, you will understand that nothing is better or nothing is worse. Everything is there. The important thing is that department is not that important at the moment. Student is important. You should be the one who should excel in your area. That is the most important thing.
So that's also my side.
I guess like from the coaching institutes, they are planning to make such students which will earn like 10 lakhs, 30 lakhs, 50 lakhs rupees, join Amazon or Google or like FANG companies. But they do not actually inculcate in the students that you have to do hard work, you have to approach for higher studies to become familiar or to become famous in that field, and
Yes.
because of that the students are they have an innate mindset of ranking the departments from like the top is CSE, then EC, then electrical, like that.
I was a FITZI student in FITZI Durgapur. I was every day fed in my mind that if you join an IIT, you will get this salary, you will join Google, Amazon, Flipkart, this, that and all that. But many people are joining, many of my friends are there. But what at the end? Means you want to satisfy yourself with a monotonous 9 to 5 job, hopping around sometime in Flipkart, sometime in Amazon, sometime here and there. That's also good if someone is interested, no offense. But importance comes when if you are able to just imagine, if you are able to make a mark where no one else has done. If someone could become like APJ Abdul Kalam, our epitome, I consider him as my also ideal for that matter. He just worked in his area completely. He got offers from NASA and all that also. He said, I'm not going to leave my motherland. He was focused. Can anyone replace him? I think no, because he is the premier of his area, the missile man of India and the president. So if you want to make a mark so that the world remembers you, means I am speaking in a much higher things, but what I want to say is that I keep my ideals like if you want to do something which is great, you have to be focused and you have to be very pinpointed in your work. The moment you will start to digress in different fields, you will diffuse. As I told you, they gave you the example of the magnifying glass. What can be the better example from it? Magnifying glass can burn the paper only if the beam is focused. So that is my take on it. Be focused and find your passion.
For every problem, we like our first instinct is to go to Google.
Yeah.
But in case of research, it's not like that because we have to find solutions to new problems.
Yes.
So, did you ever get stuck in a place and where you had no help whatsoever, like not even reading the recent work was helping you, or like anyone could help you, like you're completely stuck alone in a place and you have to find a way out?
Sometimes, not much. I'm lucky enough that I didn't get into that level of trap, that level of problem yet. Because see, I am working in collaboration, so I work with many people. Here are many people, there are many people. So if there is a problem where you are stuck, someone will know it. That is a benefit of working with collaboration. So I didn't got stuck in completely in any topic for long, because if the moment I got stuck, I used to ask all the people here and there. But sometimes I have been, and at that time I have tried to take a step back, start from the basics again, going to the basics of reading it and try to find a solution of it. So till now I have been fortunate enough that I came out of those things where I got stuck with the help of my collaborators, my supervisors, my co-fellows of the lab, or by reading the other things, other books or basic things. But it took some time. But it happens. Many of my friends who are not working in such collaboration things, but they get stuck and it really becomes painful to see that. But sometimes it happens. It can happen to me also at some time, but one has to be prepared for it, because no path which is uncharted is going to be easy. So one should be prepared for it.
Okay. Finally, I would like to ask, what is your message for your juniors? Or like if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself when you were in first year as your current self?
I would like to say two things. First is enjoy. Okay, enjoy the life of BTech. Unfortunately, I didn't stay in hostels, so my BTech stay, hostel life, I couldn't enjoy much. And now you suddenly, when you enter into PhD, you don't get that kind of life. It's a bit different. And second, whatever you do it with full passion. Don't see how much package it is going to give you. Means many people from first year only, my friends were saying वो वाला में 50 लाख मिलेगा, मेरा वो senior computer science से 30 लाख का ये लेके चला गया. Don't see that. Find your ways, see which professor is working on what and what are the things. Be focused, find your passion, enjoy your life. These are the 3 things what I want to say to my juniors.
Thank you. That was very insightful.